Hello, everyone. All right, so I guess in this stream we will discuss UFC 319 and the results, and for what's to come next for some of the fights on the card. Wow, what can I say? Khamzat Chimaev, he really impressed me. It was a boring. I mean, the fight was not very exhilarating, right? And that's not because I don't enjoy grappling. Like folks, like you can be someone that appreciates grappling while still, you know, not liking certain grappling exchanges, right? Um, but I mean, I was very impressed with Hamzat Chimaev. Very, very impressed. I had a lot of doubts going into this fight. Like I really thought this guy would gas out and whatnot. Um, I mean, yeah, I don't know what to say. But it's funny. It's like I made a post on Twitter saying like, "Oh man, this fight's getting boring," and then people were like coming at me and saying like, "Oh, if you're a true MMA fan, then you like grappling." But listen, folks, it's completely legitimate to be a fan of grappling and also think that the grappling in the DDP Hamzat fight was either bad on DDP's part or too conservative on Hamzat's part. Liking grappling doesn't mean every version of it needs to be exalted, right? So, but yeah, so let's talk about the fight. So going into the fight, right? I think the general consensus, right, and these were my thoughts too. It's either A, Hamzat needed to submit, DDP within the first couple rounds. Otherwise, he would gas out, he would get exhausted, then DDP would make a comeback and probably finish him in the fourth or fifth round, right? That was my general outlook. Um, and no, I listen, folks. Like, if you watch the training videos in the training camp leading up to this fight, it did seem like Hamzat put a concerted effort in fixing his cardio. Like he hired Sam Calvita, which is like a very respected and revered, strength and conditioning coach. I think he coached TJ Dillashaw, or like he helped TJ Dillashaw get his cardio up, and a lot of big name, UFC and MMA fighters. But even then, I was like, okay, like I don't know, right? Like I'm gonna have to see evidence in the cage that Hamzat's cardio has improved. And man, like I was really impressed, just super impressed by his persistence, right? His improved cardio. I mean, because listen, DDP is not a small person. He's big and strong. He's very gritty. He's very scrappy. Um, so I didn't really know what this fight would look like. I really didn't. So let's discuss it, right? So the fight starts, and then within the first few seconds, Hamzat lands a takedown. They scramble for a bit, and then Khamzat Chimaev puts him in a crucifix. Right, I'm really happy that the ref didn't stop it, because sometimes refs will stop it, even if they're like light shots. The point is, like, if you're not, I guess, intelligently defending yourself, and like you're just taking damage repeatedly, sometimes refs will just stop it. But DDP did a good job of like hiding his face into like you know, into the chest of Hamzat, so it was difficult initially for Hamzat to get any clean shots off. But a lot of the grappling, like, over the course of the 5 rounds, it was Hamzat getting a tight waist and then having DDP up against the cage, right? Like knelt down on like all fours, right? That's pretty much what it was. He was kind of just grinding on him, and listen, DDP did a good job of not letting any of Hamzat's rear naked choke attempts get too far, right? As soon as he sensed Hamzat going for it, he would get a two-on-one grip. He was always protecting his neck. He was always very cognizant and aware when Hamza, whenever he was vulnerable or his neck was vulnerable. At times, he was also good about not letting Hamza get his hooks in, right? So, like, he did the thing where, like, his elbows were touching his knees, like, when he was knelt down. I mean, there were times Hamza did get his hooks in, like, when he had his back, but in general, that's not something else he was worried about. But yeah, I mean, listen, props to DDP, too. Like, he did a great job of, not giving up. He tried his best. But, folks, like, I guess when you have such elite level wrestling like that, it's just so difficult to stop it, especially if you don't come from wrestling background yourself and whatnot. And to me, it seemed like DDP lacked a lot of the wrestling, defense fundamentals. Um, like if you go back and watch the Derek Brunson fight, right? DDP really struggled um, in that fight too in the wrestling department, right? So if you can't stuff the takedowns of Derek Brunson, right, then imagine what Hamzat's going to do to you. But yeah, I mean, there are a number of issues, right? Part of what made the takedowns easy for Hamzat, I mean, Hamzat's Hamzat, but DDP, oftentimes he's not stable when he's on his feet. He's off balance, right? He throws very awkwardly, right? And that really helped out Hamzat as far as taking him down. I think the first takedown attempt, DDP did this weird thing where like he tried to like, I don't know if he was trying to catch Hamzat with a knee as he was coming in, but he did this weird thing where he lifted his leg and that just made it all the easier for him to get taken down. He did the same thing in the 5th round too. But yeah, like his weird striking that's off balance really, served as a detriment in this fight because it made it all the easier just to take him down. Oftentimes when he throws strikes, he doesn't leave the pocket. He's kind of just there for the taking, And then there was one point, I think, in the 2nd round where he stuffed Hamzat's takedown, right? But instead of like scrambling or creating separation, he just kind of he just remained to be there, you know? So that's another very big issue too. It's like that's one thing he needed to work on. Just as soon as he stuffs takedown, separate, create distance, scramble, But like I said, it's like Khamzat is so potent of a wrestler that it's like, there's only so much you can do, especially if you don't really come from a wrestling background. And, and listen, yes, there are many good anti-wrestlers. Like there are many good people that come from striking backgrounds that develop like, some pretty, good or decent, takedown defense, even when they go up against elite wrestlers, But what can you do? There's only so much you can do in training, you can do in preparation, you can do for the takedown defense when you're going up against an elite MMA wrestler. But yeah. So all in all, it wasn't the most thrilling fight to watch, but I still was impressed by Hamzat's much improved cardio. The way he paced himself in this fight, right, was a lot better than he historically has, right? Like even when he was grinding on DDP, it didn't seem like he was overly like, it didn't really seem like he was expending a lot of energy, right? Like especially like when he had him on all fours, knelt up against the cage in various instances of the fight. He had a nice tight waist and whatnot. Like he was making DDP work. He's making carry his weight and whatnot. Didn't really seem like he was over exhausting himself. Now, what I will say is though, I wasn't super impressed with Hamzat's ground and pound, right? I think that was very lacking. The thing I've noticed about ground and pound is that like sometimes if you want to get off some damaging ground and pound, you kind of have to sacrifice control. So sometimes like when you're hovering over someone or like when you're in top position, there are times where you kind of like have to sacrifice that like tight control for in order to get some shots off. And sometimes if you get too many shots off, you kind of lose control. Then the person at the bottom can kind of like shuck you off. So maybe that's what it was. Maybe he was just focused on control. But like, yeah, I think really kind of ironing out that part of his game and making sure that he has devastating, kind of like Habib, right? Habib had just devastating ground and pound and very good control. So that's one thing I think that he really needs to work on. Other than that, like we didn't see too much on the feet. Like Khamzat didn't let there be any striking exchanges for longer than 10 seconds, right? So there really wasn't much there. I think DDP landed a little bit on the feet at times, but for the most part, this was a grappling affair. What else is there to be said about the fight? I'm curious who he's going to fight next. Because right now there's Imavov, there's Caio Borralho, there's Anthony Hernandez, there is RDR. So there's quite a few. There is quite a few contenders coming up. Trying to think. Oh, and the funny thing is, right, going into the 2nd round, like if you listen to DDP's corner, right, they were laughing, saying, "Oh, that's all Khamzat has," right? Because they were making the assumption that he was going to gas out. And that's the thing. I think a lot of DDP's game plan was banking on Khamzat gassing out, right? I think that's what they're anticipating. That's why I think he was being very passive in the first 2 rounds. But then as soon as he realized that like Khamzat was not slowing down, I think he really started to panic. Let's see. Let me see the contender. Look up the rankings really quick. Doesn't Kyle Burrell have a fight? Right? Am I making that up? There's someone he's fighting. Let me look this up. Spell his name. CAI. There we go. I thought he had a fight coming up. Yeah, he does. He's fighting Imavov. Oh, okay. So I guess that will decide the #1 contender. That's in less than a month. That's September 6th. Okay, it's about 3 weeks. Interesting. That's fascinating. So I guess the winner of that fight will fight Khamzat. And Khamzat said that he wanted to have a quick turnaround. He said he wants to fight again in October or November. So I'm curious. I have to do a tape study on that fight to get a sense of what I think. But yeah, Imavov shouldn't. I mean, Imavov can present certain challenges to Khamzat, right? If Imavov wins, I think I'm siding with him. But I still have to do more tape study. But yeah. So, anyways, all in all, good performance from Khamzat. Yeah, I think DDP has his work cut out for him. I think he really needs to, really iron out a lot of his grappling, holes. Because I think his mentality is that like he was gonna go in there and use his physicality to win the grappling exchanges, kind of like how he did throughout his career. And I'm happy that I'm not happy he lost. Like I like DDP, right? I was pretty neutral in this fight. Like I didn't really care who won or lost, but I'm just happy that someone that is so non-technical doesn't have a belt anymore, right? Because I think it was so jarring to a lot of people that how can someone with such a weird striking approach and whatnot, and just all around not technical, become not only become a UFC champion but beating people like Whitaker, Adesanya, Sean Strickland, high level elite MMA fighters, right? So I'm glad that we no longer have a weird doofus as champion. Anyways, moving on to the co-main event. We had Lerone Murphy versus Aaron Pico. So going into this fight, so I did pick Lerone Murphy, right? But the more tape study I did, I realized I went back and forth. In the end, I chose Lerone. I wasn't very confident. I could have seen the fight going either way. I made a bet. I made a parlay. I bet on Michael Venom Page, Lerone Murphy, and DDP. Right? It was for a lot of money too, and I just it is what it is. I won 2 legs, but anyway, so Lerone Murphy. So he made a comment, I think, in the pre-fight press conference where he said that he said something to the effect of using Aaron Pico's aggression against him, right? Using Aaron Pico's aggression against him. That's what he did, right? Aaron Pico was not being very cerebral about how he's pressuring him. He was just relentlessly pressuring him. And I think Lerone said there was an early point of fight where he landed a knee as he was coming in. And that was Lerone's way of kind of downloading the data and just kind of waiting for the perfect moment, to counter him hard. And he did. He landed that hellacious spinning elbow, right? Which is funny because that was the second one of the night. In fact, the fight prior, there was a spinning elbow KO. And I feel bad because Aaron Pico was doing well, right? He was doing well. And but I think that if he was, a bit more dialed back as far as just relentlessly just kind of walking forward into him, right? I think he could have won. Because you have a guy like Lerone Murphy who's very technical, very smart. From what we've seen, he fights well off the back foot. But no, I mean Aaron Pico did look good though, right? Despite him walking into that that devastating, spinning elbow, right? I think he did put good pressure on him, right? But I would like in, I would have liked to have seen him be a bit more careful about the way he pressured him. But I just feel bad, man, for the dude. He's 27 or 28, another concussion. Um, yeah, he wasn't looking that bad at all up until that point. He was looking pretty good. Um, but yeah, what can you do? But now the question becomes, who is going to be the contender that fights Volkanovski? Volkanovski said he wants to fight Lerone Murphy. Given what Dana White said in the press conference, it looks like he's going to give it to Lerone. I feel bad for Evloev, but that should be an interesting fight. I think it's the more fascinating fight. But I do feel bad for Mozar, because from a meritocratic standpoint, he does he does deserve it more, I guess. The guy's like what, in a 9 or 10 fight win streak, I think. Let me look it up. I get people think he's boring. I get it, but sometimes you have to do what's right. You have to give it to the person that deserves it the most. The guy is on a 9 fight win streak, right? And I get the Sterling fight was very close, but still, it's like his last 5 fights, he's beaten Sterling, Arnold Allen, Diego Lopez, Dan Ige, and Hakeem Dawodu, right? So come on. Yeah, I feel for the guy. I feel really bad, but what can you do? But yeah, good counter and knockout by Lerone. I'm sure Aaron Pico will come back. Next fight, it was Michael Venom Page versus Jared Cannon. Or no, sorry, no. It was Carlos Prates versus Jeff Neal. So this is a fight that I was very 50-50 on, right? In my mind, I saw the fight going either way, right? Both have big power and whatnot, both athletic and whatnot. But Carlos Prates did a great job of controlling the distance and keeping the fight at a distance that he felt comfortable at, and that gave him more tools, right? Because Jeff Neal is good in the close boxing distance, right? He's big power and whatnot. Carlos Prates did a good job of using diversity of attacks, knees, kicks, elbows, and whatnot, keeping that at bay, consistently just landing on him. And eventually he landed that devastating blow. So I was very impressed by Carlos Prates. Very impressed. Right? His distance management, his versatile striking, acumen in this fight. I mean, I was really impressed. Very, very impressed. I really didn't know how this fight was going to go. I was very 50-50. I really didn't know who to sort of side with or whatnot. I told everyone to stay away from this fight as far as betting goes. I didn't really have any clear reads, but I was just really impressed by Carlos Prates, right? It really goes to show how skilled Ian Gary is for beating him, a guy like this, right? But anyways, yeah, that elbow was crazy. All right. Moving on, Michael Venom Page. I mean, wow, what a performance by Michael Venom Page. My third round was, it is what it is. He slipped, and then Cannonier used that, to kind of just be a wet blanket. Yeah, I guess it was weird, right? I mean, I get Michael Venom Page is experienced in this game, but he kept getting flattened out. He didn't. It didn't seem like he wanted to get to one hip, which is what you're supposed to do, right? Get on one hip if you're on bottom, dig for the underhook, and try to get, kind of was. And like I said, listen, Jared Cannonier, he's a big, strong dude himself. Probably a lot easier said than done, but yeah, I didn't really like how Michael Venom Page was easily kind of just controlled from that position, especially from a guy in Cannonier who's not really known for his grappling or wrestling. But with that aside, I mean, the first 2 rounds were just brilliant. I mean, his hands were down. He was mocking him. Cannonier couldn't even land anything on him, man. He couldn't land anything on him, man. I think he had a couple knockdown. I don't know if they counted the second one as knockdown. I believe the first one might have been. But I mean, it's just, he's just so fast. He's just so quick. His ability to gauge distance and to understand where he's safe and where he isn't. The way that he was pivoting off his shoulder, the way he's making him miss. I mean, I love watching Michael Venom Page fight. Right? In recent years, he hasn't been the most entertaining as far as getting like the knockouts, and that's fine, honestly. Like, I really don't care. To me, it's like I just love watching him fight. He's one of my, I love watching him fight. Like, he's just, there is no other Michael Venom Page. You know, um, I mean, just his sheer athleticism. The way he toys with people, and whatnot. The way he just makes people miss. The way he's evasive. It's just, I've never seen this before. Um, people were saying they wanted to see him go up against Adesanya. You know, initially when I thought about it, I was like, yeah, that's a good idea. But then I was like, that fight's probably gonna be very boring. It's gonna be a staring contest. But the stylistic matchup is quite fascinating, right? But I don't know. I have a feeling like that fight is gonna be a staring contest. I'm willing to see it though. I'm curious. You know, I also really wanted to see Stephen Thompson versus Michael Venom Page, but for whatever reason, Stephen Thompson doesn't want that fight. He claims that it's going to be a boring fight, which I mean I understand, but yeah, I really like Michael Venom Page, man. Like I wish he came to the UFC when he was younger, like when he was in his prime, because he's like what, his mid late 30s now. How old is he? Michael Venom Page is 38. Yeah, yeah, he wasted a lot of his prime in the Bellator, right? I mean, don't get me wrong. Like he fought, good fighters like Douglas Lima. He fought Logan Storley. Like Paul Daly. He's fought a couple, really good fighters, but he really wasted a lot of his prime. Let me see what the rank. What's next for him? Let me think. All right, this fight was at 185, so I wonder. I think he'd said he want to go back down to 170 to fight Carlos Protest. That would be a sick fight. That would be a sick fight. Yeah, yeah. That would be an amazing fight. Is he in the rankings? Is he top 50? I mean, for either 170 or 185. Let me check. I don't think so. Oh no, yeah. So I mean, they haven't updated the rankings because today's a Sunday and the event was yesterday. But he's 15 on 170 list. Um, but yeah, I think he can. Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe the size will be a problem as far as the grappling. Maybe that's why Jared Cannonier had a lot of success, kind of just like controlling him. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I see him, doing well in both weight classes. Um, but him versus Carlos Protest, that would be a very fascinating fight. Very fascinating fight. Uh, let's see, what else do we have here? Let me move down. I didn't watch the Elliott and Asakura fight, right? I had the feeling that Elliott could have gotten the upset, but didn't see that one coming. Yeah, Elliott he's a very tricky fighter. He's a very, very tricky fighter. Yeah. So let's see. I did have Hernandez to beat Chase Hooper. The Jakar Close and Barboza fight. I have to go back and rewatch it. But I had it 50-50 going in. Like, this is a fight I really thought could have gone either way. Let's see. Yeah, I missed some of the prelims. Oh, wow. Jessica Andrade lost. Yeah, I wonder what's up with her. She's been on a losing streak here. I mean, like, I don't shame her for losing to Natalia Silva, right? She's a really good striker. Unique and good. Let's see. She lost this. I mean, I can't for losing to the people that she's losing to, right? It's not like she's losing to like tomato cans. These are all really good fighters. But yeah, I didn't watch this fight either, so like I'm curious as to what happened because this fight is a winnable fight for her. I don't know what happened. But yeah. So all in all, this was it was a fun card. It was a really fun card. There's quite a few finishes, right? 2 spinning back elbows back to back. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then how many fights? Yes, there were 7 finishes. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, so there's 12 fights on the card and 7 were finished. So it was exciting. These matchups were quite fascinating, right? Khamzat versus Dricus was one of the most anticipated fights of the year. Khamzat really showed that he can go 5 rounds, right? Listen, if he can keep this up, right? If he can keep up having like good cardio, right? He's gonna be a problem. I do think there are quite a few challenges for him in the 185. Listen, folks, I know a lot of you will disagree when I say this. I think Paulo Costa, right? I think Paulo Costa is a bad matchup for Khamzat, right? And I know a lot of you guys think I'm crazy. A lot of you guys think I'm crazy, right? But I think Paulo could be a problem. RDR is hard to say, because obviously, like RDR is he's not gonna take down Khamzat. But RDR, like he has such an awkward and lanky, unorthodox style. He has those devastating body knees. He has that weird jab. He doesn't have a whole lot of power, but he has good cardio. He's very gritty. He's very tough. I mean, think back to how Whitaker like almost knocked him out. Right? He recovered from that, so he's tough. He has good cardio. He's long and lanky and big for the division. He has a very good submission game. So that that could be potentially challenging. But yeah, so like I'm curious how this pans. I mean, his next fight is going to be the winner of Imavov and Baralho, and then I wonder if they're going to make RDR fight fluffy. I'm curious. That'd be a fun fight. But anyways, guys, let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section. I'll be uploading more content and doing live streams. Yeah. So I'll see you guys in the next one.